Hello friends, this is Chandrakant from Akulmek Technologies. This is a bright Monday morning and welcome to Top Brass. And let me also welcome my friend, my mentor from London, Mr. Naval Gant, who is also the author of a best-selling book called Can You Handle the Truth? Naval, good morning.
Good morning, CK. It's not so warm in the UK today. We've dropped 10 degrees over the weekend, so it's now about 14 degrees. So it's a bit chilly morning. But it's going to be a wonderful week forward. And I know you've got a burning question you want to ask me today about that book.
Absolutely, Naval. Your book title, "Can You Handle the Truth," is so interesting, and it basically makes you think what is going on. So over the weekend, I was reading some parts of your book, and since it is related to the business, and I was very intrigued, I was totally glued into the book. And today, I want to confront you with one of the questions which you have mentioned yourself and your co-author, John Gelmini. You say in your book that 80% of mergers and acquisitions fail today. So I would like to confront you. I would like to ask you why you and John feel that 80% of mergers and acquisitions fail today.
Well, it's a good question, and it's not just what John and I feel, it's what the research says. I'd be delighted actually for someone to do some real in-depth research and start quoting all of the global mergers that have happened over the years and actually work out just exactly what the company that was acquiring the other one, maybe through a hostile takeover, or perhaps a friendly merger, because that's what some of these happen as well. But what were they saying before the acquisition happened? What did they say to their shareholders on the day before acquisition? And they all would say, all the acquiring companies would be saying is, this is going to make our company better than we are today. It's going to make us huge. It's going to make us a world beater. I mean, you can hear the words coming now. I mean, they're never going to say, this is a desperate attempt by your board to make sure that we've got a future. Sometimes, actually, that's the case. It's a desperate attempt. It may be a reverse takeover. The management of one company is buying another one through the other company's cash. They don't know what to do with the cash. And the shareholders may say, well, if you don't know what to do with it, this lot sound as though they may know what to do with it. We're going to give you a chance as long as you protect our investment. So consequently, if you actually look at successful mergers, there are very, very few. And in fact, trying to think of a few is quite difficult. So I'm going to leave that to the reader, actually, and the listener, to go and tell us what you believe has been a successful merger or acquisition. But the question actually revolves around why they fail, not the fact they do fail. So why do you think they fail?
Well, with my limited knowledge, let me attempt to answer you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the first reason is the people who are behind the mergers in an organization. They are actually having an ulterior motive to make money. They are not looking at growing the merged entity further, because they have their targets on their head. So based on various compulsion, they actually go and buy another company, or merge another company. And once they make their motives success, they just move on. So in my opinion, after the M&A, the person in charge on both sides, they actually move on and then go and join another company, and they go through the cycle again. And there are certain people in the industry whose career is based on M&A. So once they merge, once they acquire, they simply move on, leaving the ship to handle itself. So it will not have rudder, it will not have the sail, it will not have the captain. and it has to, probably somehow have to stay afloat, have to steer in the right direction, have to catch the right wind. I think that is where I think most of the companies fail. This is my opinion.
Well, the point is, it's important to have an opinion because you're quite a well-read individual, and there are lots of opinions out there. I've been through a number of mergers and acquisitions. I've been on the hostile attacking side. I've been on the hostile defense side. And when I say hostile, is we're going to defend this or we're going to attack this at all costs. We may even say a few things that are just allowable because there are rules in law. There are rules that you have to stick with when you start to mention the other company, the acquiring company or the merging or the acquisition company. So I've been in organisations where we've got very close to that line, almost to the point of lying, literally to defend your own position or attack the opposition's position. I've also been in friendly mergers and acquisitions where literally people get round a table and they say, do you know what, it's best if we do join partnership here and we make an agreement that both of our shareholders are going to be very happy with. But even they're not win-win, really, because when you get in two companies, two organisations, let's say they're very large organisations, say $50 billion companies each. Their way of doing business in this company is very different, typically, of the way they do business in this company. You're therefore dealing with two different strategies. Strategies depend upon the culture of these two different teams. So, in John and my view, one of the biggest failings is that the two cultures never come together. You could have a very aggressive senior management here and a very aggressive middle management here, but very distanced senior management here. Are they in it for themselves? You ask a really good question, frankly. And the likelihood is, yeah, there's some of that. There'll be some of these two big companies that says, a 55-year-old says, well, I'm going to get out now. This is my ticket out. And another 55-year-old that says, I can't afford to get out. I've got to stay in. My career is just about to blossom. And so we're in different areas. And again, this is who we are. Molding those two together, putting a glove on a hand is what you would hope any merger and acquisition happens. But the reality is it doesn't. You get big gloves, small hands, and the hand goes like this and it disintegrates. You get a really tight fitting glove, actually, that you can't get over the fingers. And consequently, the organisation is tightened and it can't do what it wants to do. You actually see some over time that have grown really, really big and then have said, we can't do anything with this group. We need to sell some off. And we see that a lot, actually, in the oil and gas industry in particular. You see that a lot. You see a lot of acquisition and you see a lot of sales immediately afterwards to justify the acquisition, because those have become non-core. Our perception of the other company, despite the fact these are very public companies and it's public record, and every year they have to do an annual report and every quarter they do a shareholders report, the public records are only that which the board wish you to see. So again, although there are rules of what you're allowed to say, some people just come short of what they really should be saying, and equally, but for their own protection and maybe for someone else's protection too. So consequently, there are so many moving parts that even when you have two organisations coming together like this, there's still this huge perception reality gap in the middle. Are they as good as we think they are? Are they anywhere near as good as we are. And most acquisitions are hostile. There are very, very few friendly acquisitions. One of the biggest ones in the IT arena recently was IBM and Red Hat. I'm sure you probably saw what was out there. And I think the jury's out still as to whether or not that was a good acquisition. It was a very expensive acquisition, and a lot of Red Hat management have displaced IBM management, it would appear. But again, that's someone from the outside looking in, so we can't really see what's going on. But going back to your first statement, 80% of acquisitions fail. I think that's being generous, actually. I think it's probably quite a bit higher. But then let's define what is failure. Well, in my view, if I have 50 billion here and 50 billion here, I want the two to come together to be more than 100 billion. What's the chances of that? The administrative synergies that they all dip into, we can reduce our running costs. We can reduce our marketing because now we're just working with the same customers, but with one marketing team, one dynamic marketing, which is going to be smaller, and the administration is going to be smaller, and the finance processes are going to be smaller. And there's lots of reasons why synergy, is a very big seller. But actually, strategy is the bigger one. I've seen organizations in the past where one was very desperate, not on the balance sheet and not on what they were saying to their shareholders, but they were desperate actually to get more cash in the business going forward. And the only way they can do that was to buy a producing company. Because in 2 years' time, they saw red lines in their balance sheet, but they're not going to tell anybody. And equally, the last time you go to a bank and ask for money is when you need it. You always go to a bank and ask for money long before you need it, because the balance sheet looks good, the forecast looks good, and they're going to be flowing. Yes, how much do you want, Mr. Gordon? Not a problem. Here's a check, bank it when you like. The last time you ever go to a bank is when you need the money, because then the interest rate goes up and they're in the driving seat. So I hope this makes a bit of sense, really. It's a really big question, but I think the simple answer is culture, frankly. When two tribes go to war is a great song, and that's what happens. Two tribes go to war and you end up with lots of casualties. And the shareholders, in my view, rarely benefit. But you never know. If anyone's listening out there that can prove to us that there's been a very successful merger or acquisition in the last 20 years, there we go. Go back 20 years, carte blanche. Please let us know, because we're struggling to find a few. Hope that answers your question today, CK. So can you handle the truth?
I've gone through the first few pages, so by the time I end the book, probably I will be able to handle the truth. Right now, I'm on my journey. Right now, I'm taking baby steps every day. Tomorrow, I will ask you another interesting question. But for today, I think my learning, my understanding after talking to you is that the M&As are done, why they fail is basically because they're done with ulterior motives, not with novel ideas. I think that is the crux of the matter, which you have told us in so many words. So if you decide to do with a novel idea, the chances are you will bring together all the tribes and all the culture together. You will take time to integrate the organization. You will be patient. But since people don't have patience, they just simply move on after 1 or 2 years, leaving the ship rudderless. So I think that is where we are. Very interesting conversation, very interesting detail that you have given. The question arose from the book itself, but you have very nicely and remarkably explained this whole situation. I think it is quite valuable for me, and I understood what you should say.
That's great. Again, let's reach out. If people do know of successful acquisitions or what they believe is successful acquisitions, come and tell us. We're always happy to learn, and I'm on a journey too. So handling the truth is probably the least of our problems. What do we do with it? It's really the most important thing. But we'll find out a bit more tomorrow, I guess.
Certainly, Neville. So you take care. Have a nice day. Wear mask. Wash your hands. Stay indoors. We'll catch up tomorrow.
Be safe, CK. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.